I'm Eugene Ralph, and I'm here with Jessica Lewis, and she's running for a judgeship here in Dallas. And so, Jessica, fill us in.
Yes, well, Eugene, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm running for the 14th Judicial District Court of Texas, and that sits in Dallas County. It's a county-wide race, a county-wide position, and it is a civil district court, which means that it doesn't handle criminal matters.
Right.
And in the way that our Texas courts are set up, it also doesn't handle family law matters.
Okay.
It focuses on general civil disputes,
Okay.
everything ranging from car wrecks, business disputes, constitutional issues that might happen in the civil context.
Okay. So, do you currently hold a position?
No, I'm running against an incumbent.
Okay.
And I have just stepped up into this role because for a long time our local courts have been controlled by the Democrat incumbents, and I believe that we need to have a little bit more balance and make sure that our courts reflect the ideals that I stand for.
Okay. And so you said that you're running for the first time, and so it was that the idea that those ideals need to be reflected that inspired you to run.
Yes, it did. I truly believe that we need to restore the faith in our court system.
Okay.
I think that there's several facets of that, but people need to understand and feel comfortable with the fact that when they show up to a courtroom, which is already a scary time, right? No one wants to be in a courtroom. Nobody wants to have to pay a lawyer. I understand all of that, but when they show up, that they have an honest opportunity for their case to be heard.
Okay.
That just because of their background or their resources, their sphere of influence, what politics they have, what they look like, whether they have an abundance of funds at their disposal or few, that they have the opportunity for justice in a fair, impartial way in that courtroom.
Okay. You mentioned the need for the fairness, and I think that most people, and I say most, I really hate to have to say most, but obviously everybody doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but the vast majority of people would agree with you that when they go to court, they expect to be treated fairly. They expect the judge to be even-handed, and I think some people are really shocked when they find out that's not the case. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you go to school? A little bit about your background.
Yes, certainly. So I grew up in East Texas.
Okay.
I've been in Dallas since about 2006. And I'm not one of those types that grew up thinking I was going to be a lawyer my whole life. Though when the clouds parted and God made the calling, it did click really well. I was like, oh, I've always been the one that loves to argue, probably in the bad way, but also in the good way, and like really dig into things and really understand. And I've always had this just a heart for the idea of justice.
Okay.
And so when that happened, I went to SMU Law School, graduated from there. I started my career at a law firm called Baker Botts. That is it's an international law firm based in Houston. They have a large Dallas presence, and I was in the Dallas office. I was there for several years, and then during that time, I'd also been volunteering heavily with a nonprofit that was based in West Dallas, and also does work other places in the city, called Advocates for Community Transformation. And I've been volunteering with them, and they had asked if I'd considered going on full-time staff there. Felt called to do that. Went there. What they focus on is trying to bring peace, shalom, really, and healing to neighborhoods that are battling crime, and representing residents in those high crime neighborhoods to use civil cause of action. I mentioned this is being a civil court that I'm running for. It's a civil cause of action that they represent these residents against the people that were creating the oppression. So it was people that were harboring crime in the properties that were their neighbors, their next door situation, whether it be like a drug house or other kind of chop house, house of prostitution. That was really oppressing the people, the residents there. And so I've got really connected with other neighborhoods in Dallas that I had been very limited in where I lived, where I originally started before law school. I just like had my little stores that I went to get groceries, would go home, work, go home, work, go home, get groceries, go home, and then going to law school and just have very little means there, and so just kind of focused on a small narrow world. And it really wasn't until I was able to really own the idea of the law degree, and own the idea that while many people would say there are too many lawyers, they are still limited in compared to the general population, and that is a gift that should be used to bring about justice, reconciliation, healing, good leadership in our communities. And so that is something that I then really fully more embraced on a full-time level. I've gone back to private practice and been still actively involved in that work.
And that's very interesting. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you married?
Yes. So I have a wonderful husband named Jordan Lewis, and some beautiful children that I try to keep out of everything, but off of videos and everything to the extent that I can. But you might hear them at some point. I don't know. They're very vocal, but we're a young family and have a lot going on. And I'll tell you, this is probably not what I would have originally just signed off on saying, okay, yes, I'll check box and I'll do this too. But I truly believe that because I love my kids and want to make sure that this world is going to be a good place for them to grow up. I know there'll always be injustices. I know there'll always be issues, but I do believe that we're called to step out and to take action to try to make it better, to try to work towards justice. And so, and other aspects of that, unity, being a Christ follower myself, I also think that we as Christians are still so divided in the Dallas community, right? There's faith communities that just never touch each other, and that I feel like if we all got together and really we could transform this city. And I know that it might even be naive to say that, but I think that I serve a great God.
The thing is, I love it. I love the fact that you are, for lack of a better term, naive in that sense, because the reality is we do have the ability to change the world. I mean, Jesus changed the world with 12 men. So we have the capability of making huge impacts if we approach it the right way, and if if our heart is in the right place. And I'm always so excited to see Christians run for office. Christians who love the Lord, who are dedicated their lives to living their lives as a Christian. And then as a part of that, we want to serve in some capacity to advance the kingdom of God. And I know that some people consider that being controversial, but as a Christian, I'm called to whatever I do. I'm supposed to be advancing His kingdom. I'm supposed to be doing whatever I'm doing to His glory. And so if you're advancing the kingdom of God, you are giving Him glory. So I'm excited about your campaign, and I wish you all the best. And so I was going to ask a question, but you answered. I was going to ask a question, but you answered it before I asked it.
Well, that's great. Well, I was going to piggyback on what you said, though, because I think I have the message that I want to share for the general, like everyone, right? Which is the idea that I want to restore faith in our court system, just the little f faith, right? In our court system, the fact that they should work and they should be fair and impartial. So that's one thing, and I do want to bring maybe the big F faith to the bench as well, because I believe that worldview matters. I believe that particularly people that have the root in their faith are more likely to be those impartial, justice-minded, liberty-minded, constitution-minded people, because they see people as all made in the image of God and equal before the law and before the Lord. So that's that side, and then I believe that I'm the experienced and have that faith and that worldview that can make me a good, effective person there. But for the faith community, I have a second message too, which is twofold. First, I would say either get involved yourself and be willing to step up and stand up in these spaces where we so need people to do that. And then the second, make sure that like stand with the candidates that actually reflect those values. Don't just blindly and just ignore the Sunday Christian aspect, right? Where it's like, well, this is politics. This is my religion's over here, my politics is here. I mean, I will tell you, plenty of people, it seems like these days, are supplanting their religion with politics. And I would say that for those who follow Christ, they need to be very much infused.
You know, I have to admit, I didn't know you. I did not. I just heard your name, and you know, I mean, people have mentioned me. I mean, of course, you know, you're running as a Republican, so I'm going to vote for you.
Yeah.
And I was hoping, you know, that this person, obviously, I figured your judicial philosophy would fall in line. And even though it's not much in the way of judicial philosophy here, but it does play its role in how we, you know, I would say if you're talking about judicial philosophy, it's going to be something that's akin to, we're going to follow the law. Versus one that says, I'm going to be an activist. If I don't like the law, I'm just going to rule the way I want. So with that in mind, I was going to be inclined to vote for you anyway. But to listen to you explain what you're saying and what ultimately what you'd like to do, what you believe the church, those of us who are members of the church, should be doing as far as advancing our narratives in various ways through community, through civic duty. It's just exciting to hear, and it's exciting. You know, I honestly, my heart longs for people to run for office who are like you. Honestly, I just have no idea. I've shared this for many years with people, and honestly, when I first got involved in politics as an activist, as a person who supports campaigns, this was rather common. It wasn't that long ago. It's just that I noticed that we seem to have lost our way, and in the last 15, 20 years, so much of it has been focused on politics till it's not about what it really should be about, and that should be about doing things the right way, right? So to hear someone who's young and enthusiastic, excited about the idea of actually advancing I would say a constitutional agenda, but also from a Christian perspective. We have an biblical worldview, and just listening to you talk about that is just exciting to hear. And I look forward to your success.
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned judicial philosophy, how this like translates to the courtroom. You touched on it a little bit. I think I might have touched on it a little bit, but yes, that the idea, going back to the idea that the worldview of the judge makes a difference, right? It's going to show up. You're going to have a worldview.
That's right.
You're going to have a system of beliefs, and if you believe that if you have like a big government belief, a small government belief, it's going to show up. If you've got now that doesn't mean that a Christian, for people that are Christians, I mean that a Christian is going to show up and say, oh, well, the plaintiff's a Christian and the defendant's a non-Christian, so I'm going to rule for the Christian. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. It's the faith, the foundation of the judge in saying that this is my role, this is what I'm here to uphold.
That's right.
And that is the rule of law, that is justice, and that is impartiality. And that's also understanding and the idea that our system has even its own flaws, right? That yes, you might have a whole team of very expensive lawyers on one side that are giving very eloquent arguments, and they're not on the side of justice. And then you've got someone that's in there and they're just trying to do their best, and they might have an awful lawyer, you know, God help them. And there is something to be said for the judge can come back and filter through that and see that that's the situation. It's not playing favorites. It's not picking sides. It's not saying, well, I like the way your legal team looks. I like the way that I know you're affiliated with somebody that donated to my campaign. Like, none of that should step into the courtroom.
Right, absolutely.
And that is my judicial philosophy, focusing on equality before the law, the rule of law, understanding that we have a U.S. and Texas Constitution that we should uphold, that those create freedom.
That's right.
Or at least they don't create it. We are created with freedom, but they help stand as a bulwark between us and oppression. And so those are things that I think that all of our courts should have. They should have that foundation. And I'm concerned when I see that when the courts become maybe so politically driven and specifically controlled by any particular political party, because I believe that any particular political party, whatever it is, if there's no check,
right,
there's no balance, then our hearts as humans,
right,
they're corrupt, and they without that accountability, then it's just an invitation for corruption. And so I think we as Christians need to stand up against that.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier about having an impact on the community, and Dallas is, you're running in Dallas, the
Yes.
city of Dallas. And so
The county, the countywide, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the county of Dallas, and Dallas County is, I would say, fairly diverse. The county is very diverse, as far as many demographics, whether it be race, whether it be age, whether it be gender, whether it be marital status, all of those things. And this is a civil court.
Yes.
And so, what are some of the challenges that you had up to this point? First of all, how long have you been running?
Oh, running?
Yeah.
So running for this office started at the end of 2019. So that's when they declare candidacy.
Okay, so you've been running, so I would say seven months or so. Right.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Throw COVID in there too,
Right,
so
right,
it's
right,
been
right.
an interesting ride.
Yeah, very much so. So, since you've been running, what are some of the challenges that you've seen as running as a candidate in this sort of hodgepodge of Dallas County?
Well, I mean, I'll say I specifically have felt a heart for Dallas County and Dallas, and some of I think the just historical issues that we have, the dividing lines that we have. I feel like that beyond the specific race, that there's just been, I just have a heart for the city, and I guess the obstacles are the ones that have been laid down a long time ago. There are such divisions, there are such preconceived notions about the way people will vote, people will react, people who will listen. I mean, I've been involved in various organizations that have been trying to try to bridge those gaps, but there have been definitely times where I'm like, well, if I have to remind myself that I can't fix everything, I got to go one place at a time, and that, man, if it was all in my power, it wouldn't be fixed perfectly anyway.
Right.
But I think that in this space, it's really getting people to care about judicial races and seeing them with the same, excitement as sometimes people look at the more legislative ones, where people can have bold stands that now everyone wants in their extreme polarized positions. And judges can't do that. We
Right.
can't go out and talk about some of maybe more provocative
Right.
things that might get people riled up. And by nature, we're supposed to be somewhat boring, non-controversial people. Not that all of our judges have been, and not that, I mean, you can Google things, but getting people to understand that there's a chance and nobody wants to be there, but they could wind up in the court. And what do they want on that court? Do we want a court that looks like the one that I described, or do we want one that's the opposite? So I think that's been a challenge, and then of course COVID-19 has created a lot of concern here too, because the various opportunities to meet and connect with people have been perhaps more limited or delayed, and so that's its own issue. And then I think those are probably the main challenges that are going on right now. Yes. One more thing that I want to say in terms of a challenge that we've come across is the concern from the legal community. I'm a lawyer. I'm in the legal community, and there's a lot, the idea that you can't fight at City Hall. There's that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have run across a lot of folks that are in the legal community that desperately want change in the court system, but cannot, or don't feel comfortable. They can, but they don't feel comfortable standing out against those issues because they're concerned about what blowback they'll get professionally. Because if you go against against a judge, and then you have to try a court in front of him or her, then that is an issue. And so I would say that there's also that as a concern. That
So would you repeat that? Because I'm not sure I heard you.
yes, yeah. So in the legal community specifically, with lawyers,
Okay.
in the lawyer community, there is concern about actively supporting, promoting, advocating for a non-incumbent judge.
Oh, okay.
So, because the incumbent judge, the ones that are in power, and currently it's pretty well settled there, in some of these courts at least, that they're concerned about the potential blowback,
Okay.
right? You don't want to put your name out against. If you practice in those courts, you're not necessarily putting your name out there
Okay.
against folks.
So, Jessica Lewis,
Yeah.
you're running for a judgeship here in Dallas County in the civil court. And can you tell us specifically what court that is again?
Yes, it's the 14th Judicial District Court
Okay.
of Texas. Yes,
Okay.
it's a countywide
It's a district
race.
court.
Yes.
Okay. 14th Judicial Court of Dallas County, in Dallas County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I would say just summarizing it, can you tell us a little bit, just kind of summarizing
Yeah.
what you want the audience to understand about you
Mm-hmm.
and your race?
Yes. Well, in short, I would say that I'm on a mission right now to help restore faith in our courts.
Okay.
And that has different sides of it. That both is the opportunity to get justice in your court, if you have to go in the courtroom, that you know that the judge presiding over the case is going to be impartial and is not going to be swayed by the powers that be or the resources or the background or anything about you or the other side.
Okay.
That's one aspect. The second aspect is that I think that the worldview of the judges matter, and that my worldview particularly puts me in a position that provides a foundation for being the person that will foster that environment of impartiality, that will help foster reconciliation and healing in our communities, and by providing a truth-seeking and justice-minded courtroom environment. And also, I do think that should also step outside the courtroom. To add a third thing, I think that judges are leaders in the community, and that we want judges that care about these issues spreading from the courtroom beyond into the community, so that folks know that their rights, they know more about the scary legal system, that they understand that there are rights and a constitution and freedoms that they have and that should be protected, and all of these things are things that I'd like to see restored in the courtroom.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. All right, Jessica, I'm saying it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you finally, and I definitely will be doing everything I can to help support your campaign.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you all the best.
It's such an honor. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.